Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 34th Annual Peer Mediation Conference, Ventures in Peer Mediation. The Peer Mediation Conference has been bringing together youth peer mediators for over 30 years now. This is the first year the conference has gone virtual to connect peer mediators around Hawaii and others aspiring to develop their own peer mediation program. My name is Jose Barzola from the Mountain Institute for Peace at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. This year's Peer Mediation Conference is brought to you as a collaborative of 22 different organizations around Hawaii that support this conference that is spread out throughout the month of April. The Peer Mediation Conference consists of an opening panel, 16 skill workshops, and a closing panel. You can definitely learn more about all the events at matanagainstitute.eventbrite.com. Today's event will focus on a skill workshop on reframing with Alexa Dabbs, Sage Andrews, and Shelly Andrews from the Kailua High School Peer Mediators. Thank you for joining us to learn about peer mediation skills today. Learn how to become a better listener, friend, and mediator through the art of reframing. Ever known someone who seems to be stuck in a bad mood or can't solve a problem? Learn how to reframing is actually more powerful than giving advice. And to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to Sage. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sage. So today we're going to be learning about reframing and how that can help in relationships. So if you want to, the Jamboard link should be in the chat, and we can also put in the code in there. But if you want, you can go there to follow along with this presentation. It's interactive, so it allows us to kind of communicate with you while we're doing the presentation.
Just a minute, I'm just setting it up.
Just to explain what Jamboard is, if you can see on the screen right now, we have the Jamboard opened. But basically, if you look on the left-hand side when you open Jamboard, you'll see a bunch of tools. The one that I prefer is the sticky note one. It's in the middle, it's like a square. I like that one because it's really easy. You can write a short little message and then you can color code it and move it wherever you want on the screen. Another one is you can use a drawing tool, which I don't really recommend for writing out anything, but I like it if you want to just write something quick, maybe like a check mark or a smiley face or anything like that.
Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and put in your reasons that you decided to come into the workshop, into the Jamboard, and then we'll go on to the next slide. Alyssa, do you mind reading the next slide? Or Alexa, sorry.
If you'd like to follow along with our presentation, go to the PEP website listed below. Scroll down to the bottom, click on the KHS PEP handbook, and don't forget to give us your feedback through our Jamboard.
Awesome. So again, don't forget, I don't know if anyone's put anything in there yet, but just what are your reasons you decided to come to the workshop today? And then our next slide is, what does it mean to reframe? I don't know if any brave souls want to write down what they think. They could put it in the chat as well. What does it mean to reframe? And then while we're thinking about that, we will cheat and show you a quick video.
Right, I'm Edward, and this is a pictorial representation of what I mean by reframing, okay? Reframing is taking a frame that someone has around a particular subject or a situation, the frame through which they're looking at it, think of it like a window frame. And often when they're in conflict, they're looking through a particular frame and all they're getting is, in this case, a bunch of black smoke, all right? Lots of dark, they're caught up in what's bad, okay? And actually, if you look at it, that bit is bad, okay? Now, what we want to do when we reframe is to take that frame and change its position. We want to make it, often, we can just make it bigger, okay? So we take the frame that the person is using to look at the world and enlarge it so that they can change their perspective. This is a really important part of conflict resolution, is helping people get a new perspective on their situation. Now, this might seem a little bit far-fetched for them at the time, but let's just take the case here that this is a chimney, all right? And this is actually a house, and there's a window here, and there's another window here, and actually there's a river out here. Now, you don't have to necessarily look just at the smoke or the house. You might want to choose to focus and look at the forest that's over here as well. But people will forget the overall picture. They'll forget the good things. They'll forget the nice bits. They'll focus on what's bad. And what we want to do when we're reframing is change that view, whether it's over here or larger. That's reframing.
Yay. So I don't know if anyone had time to go into the Jamboard and tell us what reframing is. Nobody did. But anybody want to put in the chat?
Yeah, someone said something in chat.
Oh, great. Awesome. Oh no, I didn't see anything in the chat yet.
It's they said redirect.
Oh, to redirect.
Yes,
Oh,
redirect.
awesome. Awesome. Redirect your thoughts. Perfect. Thanks for sharing. All right. So we're actually going to watch another video, and this is an example of how to reframe a conversation in mediation.
I think we all know that when we're in conflict, the way we phrase what we want to say has a big impact upon the way it's received. Similarly, the way we approach a conversation or frame it has a big impact upon how successful we're going to be in solving a tricky problem. And these problems are usually tricky because they've been repeated and we've had these conversations over and over again and we keep getting the same answer. So if we have a different approach, it's a bit like landing a plane, you know? If the approach is smooth, the landing will be smooth. But if the approach is bumpy, look out for a bumpy landing or a difficult conversation. Common mistake we make is we start the conversation from our own viewpoint, and that's the very viewpoint that the other person finds problematic. After all, if they agreed with us, there'd be no need to have the conversation. Let's have a look at an approach that's not likely to work. A typical situation might be where a manager wants to talk to an employee or a volunteer about their punctuality.
Ruth, I'm really upset that you're not reliable. I've told you that we need reliability, and yet you keep turning up late or early without warning, and it has to stop.
I am reliable. I always show up when I'm rostered on, but I have a child and she's my first priority. Someone needs to make sure she gets to daycare on time, and traffic can be really unpredictable.
As you watch that conversation unfold, you probably realise that an argument is possible, even likely. That's because Ruth probably feels like she's being judged or blamed. And the manager started the conversation from her own perspective and has left Ruth out of it. That's a natural place to start because it's easy, but it's just not going to work. Rather than start with our own perspective of the problem, I think it's often useful for us to first describe the difficulty that we're having discussing, kind of like how a third party would see it. The perspective of a bystander. What these people are doing is having trouble discussing the question of punctuality in the workplace. Next, it's important that we acknowledge how the other person sees the world. Then we can talk about how we feel about it. I call this the 3-2-1 problem-solving way of having a conversation, or framing the conversation. Let's see how that might work in this situation.
Ruth, you and I need to talk. We've been having some trouble coming to a workable agreement about your starting times.
Yeah.
Notice how that conversation was framed, as if it was being described by somebody observing what was going on. After that happens, we talk about the other person's perspective to show them that we understand.
You've told me that you need flexibility because you've got responsibilities to your child, and also it takes you a really long time to get here in traffic.
It does, yeah.
Only after we've heard those things do we go to the first person perspective. That's the way we see the world.
I need to have predictability and reliability to ensure that the office is manned and to also ensure that other volunteers aren't being burdened with extra work.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Of course, we wouldn't need such a frame or approach if we could just tell the other person what to do and they would willingly do it. So where we want to get to is working with that person to solve the problem.
I'd really like to work this out so that you can have sufficient flexibility and I don't need to be burdening other volunteers with extra hours.
Okay.
Our aim in framing a conversation this way is to create a shared problem that we can solve together. So remember, the frame or the approach is 3, 2, 1, and then solve the problem. 3 is the third party perspective, the bystander. 2, that's the other person's perspective, the person you're having difficulty with. 1 is your own perspective, letting them know how you feel about the situation. And finally, we try to solve the problem. It's worth a try, especially if the last attempt you've had really crashed.
So
And these problems.
I hope that helped. I'm going to go back to our slides and I'm going to have, I think it's Sage. Can you read this one? Oh, sorry. Is this Alexa? Yep. Alexa, is this yours? I forgot.
I think that's mine, and then hers is the next one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So during the last week, the other team was yelling and taunting us the whole time. Then during one play, a guy on the other team, tackled my friend Cody and then stepped on his hand on purpose when he was getting up. I swore at the guy and then shoved him a little. And the ref penalized us for unsportsmanlike conduct. Then I got in trouble with my coaches, and now I heard Cody is blaming me because we lost the game.
So if you want to, go to our Jamboard and let us know, what do you think? What would be the right answer to this? So this is something we would do when we're practicing peer mediation. We would go over different scenarios and how to reframe practicing. Anybody want to have a guess? A, well, at least you got your licks in. B, what could you have done differently? C, so you were frustrated that the ref didn't penalize the other guys for taunting and playing dirty? D, do you think it was a little bit your fault? Cody did tell us it was your fault. Or E, are you disappointed that Cody's mad at you when you were trying to back him up? B could be right. Is that what you're saying, B? I think the best one might be C. Also, maybe E might be. A lot of them are true. But just to be thinking about how you would reframe it is basically what this practice is all about. Okay, Alexa, do you want to read the next one?
I was in class and I didn't have my phone with me because my friend was holding it for me. Plus, I didn't have a pen. And the teacher said to take out paper and write down our homework assignment. So I borrowed some paper from my friend, but she didn't have an extra pen. So I saw. Can y'all hear me?
I can kind of hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I'll start over. I was in class and I didn't have my folder with me because my friend was holding it for me. Plus, I didn't have a pen and the teacher said to take out paper and write down our homework assignment. So I borrowed some paper from my friend, but she didn't have an extra pen. So I saw this pen sitting on a desk and I used it. And the next thing, this guy David is yelling at me, accusing me of stealing his stupid pen.
Awesome. So again, we're just going to go, if you want to go to the Jamboard and just shout out the answer, you can, or you can also go to the chat and put it in. Would you say A, you were stuck because you didn't have the supplies you needed and you didn't think anyone would mind that you used the pen? B, don't you think you should have asked him first? C, what are you going to do the next time so that this doesn't happen again? Or D, so are you willing to work this out? What would you say would be the best reframe there? Oh, people are putting in the chat. C. Yeah. What are you doing next time so this doesn't happen again? I think A actually is the best actually because you're actually reframing. So yeah, thank you for the A. Noelani.
C sort of works. I think the idea is that instead of trying to have them resolve it, is just trying to rephrase so that you can better understand what their perspective is before you try to problem solve and figure out what the next steps are.
That's perfect, Sage. Yeah, it is sort of right, but yeah, as far as reframing, then A would be the best. Okay, and then when we're practicing, we like to show this, and this is just basically getting students to see the difference between positions, interests, and needs. And obviously, when we have disputants come in and they have an issue, they're going to just present their position. So in the first example that we just read, or Alexa just read, it's about the pen. One person thinks a pen was stolen. The other person maybe just saw a pen available and wanted to use it. And so they have a difference of opinion here. Their interests are below the water. So this is the reasons behind that position. Maybe this person that needed the pen, he just wanted to get some work done. Maybe this person that had their position, he needed to get some work done too. So obviously he wanted his pen to do the work. How can we get them to shared interest here? And that might mean talking about their needs. Maybe they just need to talk about this because they had this unresolved conflict. They have had unresolved conflict in the past and they need to hash that out. It could also be that they just have an issue in the classroom itself. And then maybe that we can talk about how to get to that shared interest of, you know, how can we get everybody to get along? And hopefully both of them have pens and they can both do their work. Okay, so I think this one is Sage again. Sage, you mind reading that one?
Yeah, so this is kind of like the steps towards reframing and I guess just solving a situation. So to start, quote, I can't walk with someone like her. She's stubborn and won't listen to any of the instructions. So the first thing to look at is what are some of the hurtful words that you can take out. So look at the statement and then maybe go through and find anything that you can kind of take offense to. So when I'm looking at it, I'd say stubborn would be one of them because calling someone stubborn can often be seen as offensive. And then there's also another one in there if you want to put it in the chat or in the Jamboard. The next thing it goes to is, sorry, it's small. What emotions does a statement imply? So what is the person saying this feeling? Are they angry? Are they sad? Are they happy? What are the speaker's current emotions while saying that phrase? Next is what are the interests reflected? So what does she potentially want when she's saying the statement? What does she think she's not receiving when she's saying the statement? And then how could you potentially reframe this? So how could you change the statement so that it's less offensive and more to the point so that the people hearing it can receive it and not feel offended by it?
And I'll check our chat. Don't see anything in the chat. Anybody want to go and go out and voice what they think? A reframe?
People should be able to unmute themselves now if anyone's interested.
Stubborn is hurtful, yes.
Yeah, I can go through this one because I'm pretty sure we have another slide like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can do this one and then somebody can do a different one.
Okay.
Just so that you kind of know what you're doing. So yeah, stubborn is a hateful, like a hurtful word. And then I also think that by saying that someone won't listen to you or to the instructions, that can also be seen as offensive or hurtful. The next thing is what emotion does the statement imply? It sounds like she's quite angry and even frustrated because it seems like the person they're referring to isn't listening and isn't doing the supposed work that they're supposed to. And then what interests are reflected? I would say in this, I bet these guys are working together in some sort of group because then it would be affecting the speaker if one of her group mates wasn't seeming to do the work that she is supposed to or listening to the instructions that their group was given. And then I guess a way I would reframe this is, I guess instead of saying I can't work with someone like her, I might say, I want to say something it might be difficult to make compromises, or it takes more work to work with her. And then instead of saying that she's stubborn and won't listen to any instructions, maybe say something, if you're saying this to somebody else, instead I'd reframe what she's saying and then say, so you're upset because the person in your group doesn't seem to be contributing equally to your work.
Perfect. That's a good reframe. I love that one. There's one in the chat. I'm willing to work with her and help her understand the instructions. Okay, so here's another one, another practice. Alexa, do you mind reading this one?
Yeah. So the quote is, "You told her about the note. I knew I shouldn't have trusted you. What are hurtful words you could take out?" is the first step. I'd say some words is like "shouldn't have trusted you." And then, yeah. The second box is, "What emotions does the statement apply?" I see betrayal and hurt and like, yeah, betrayal is like the big one. And then the third box is, "What interests are reflected?"
Just like they didn't trust her. She doesn't, you know, there's not enough trust.
And then, how would you reframe this? I'd ask why you told her in the first place, or why you told her in the first place, and like why, just why would be.
Yeah, you just want to say it basically in a nicer way. And I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts on theirs. I don't know if anyone in the Jamboard wrote anything. No. Well, let me give you another slide here. Here's another video about how to reframe your personal thoughts about yourself. And this is one I think is really important because it's really hard to reframe other people's thoughts when we are thinking negative thoughts ourselves. And this can be really typical now, especially in our world today.
Our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors continually affect each other, and it's easy to develop negative patterns where unhelpful thoughts lead to unhelpful feelings and actions. Sometimes this can become a vicious cycle. Many of us don't realize that we can influence this process and that this can improve our mental health. The best way to deal with these unhelpful thoughts is to recognize them, challenge them, and see if you can replace them. Some people call this the catch it, check it, change it approach. With practice, this can help us look at perceived problems from a different perspective. For example, you might be worried about an important task you have to do at work, convinced it will go wrong and everyone will think you're a failure. Rather than immediately accepting this thought and feeling even worse, take a moment to catch it and check it. Ask yourself whether there's good evidence for it, or if there are other explanations. Try thinking about what you would say to a friend who is thinking this way. Finally, see if you can change the thought for a more positive one. Maybe, I'm prepared, I've put a lot of work in, and I'm going to do my best. Sometimes you will be able to change the thought to a positive one, but don't worry when at other times you can't. There are no right or wrong answers. It's about learning to think more flexibly and be more in control. By catching the thought, checking it, and seeing if you can change it, with practice, you can help break the negative cycle.
Okay, and we're actually at our last slide today. So this week, try using reframing and active listening. If you ever feel stuck, try using the following sentence stems. And this probably would have helped you guys earlier, Sage and Alexa. I'm sorry, I should have had these up with the reframes, and also you guys. It's easy to reframe when you use one of these sentence stems. So you see the problem as, what I hear you saying is, it sounds like you are really angry about, you seem frustrated by, you feel like. So just some little sentence stems that can help. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I just really want to thank Sage and Alexa because they're both first year peer mediation students. Alexa actually just started in the class about 2 weeks ago. So coming and presenting, just very, very awesome and brave. And thank you, Sage, again for presenting again today. So anybody have questions about reframing?
Also, if you wanted to really quickly, I think people have been putting stuff on the Jamboard. If you want to just double check to see if anything's been putting stuff on other sites, because I think we went through that quite quickly, so I can see that if people might have put stuff on there. Well, we were going on other slides.
I see some people were writing A or D for our one reframe. And again, these are just nice practices. And it is all on our website, these practices. If you want practice, like teaching students how to reframe, I find that some of these are dated, but they're still really helpful. And then, yeah, not much. Excited to be here. Always need to practice and expand my reframing skills in life. I'm facilitating a community dialogue on this soon. So that's why it's on my mind today. And reframing is a hard skill. I need more practice. So again, I just want to thank you, Sage and Alexa, for helping present, because this is a very, very difficult topic. And there's a lot of adults that need practice with this. So practicing it now is really great. Anybody else have comments or questions? Oh, I love all your videos and examples. I may have to hit you up next year and get some resources to make my trainings better. Mahalo. Yes, no problem. We'd love to work with you again and definitely talk. And then I would have appreciated if you asked me before sharing the note. Oh, so sorry about that. And then sorry, I want to respond to the Jamboard, but I didn't get it. No problem. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? All righty. Well, I think that's all we have today. Really appreciate you as well, Jose. Thank you for putting this together and giving us just a way to share what reframing is with everyone. Hope you had some practice.
Thank you so much. Definitely, I just want to, you're right. Like, thank you, Sage and Alexa. I was actually quite impressed when I learned earlier that it's just your first year of high school. So I wish you all the best. I think you're doing an amazing job providing us these amazing skills workshops. So thank you so much for guiding us along. I appreciate your insights and to peer mediation as your approach as peace builders and conflict resolvers, as well as just your kindness that in all that you do. So thank you. And Shelley, once more, a million thank yous just for always supporting and helping out in so many different ways. Also, last but not least, thank you to all for joining today's webinar. We deeply appreciate your interest and support in joining us to learn about peer mediation programs throughout Hawaii at the 34th Annual Peer Mediation Conference, Adventures in Peer Mediation.